Our second reading comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2, verses 13 to 23. And we pick up now just after the Magi or the kings have left. Now, after the Magi had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the Magi, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had learned from the Magi. Then what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead." When Joseph got up and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel, but when he heard that Archelaus was ruling Judah in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. I don't know about you, but I'm pleased to be able to tell you that I don't think I've ever been told in a dream in the middle of the night to get up and take my family away to someplace safe. That thought is just plain scary. Although many families across history have responded to the threats to their safety and continue to respond to the threats of their safety and well-being by immigrating and moving, that is different somehow than having an angel of the Lord give you specific instructions to get out now. Maybe I can admit having premonitions caused by fear or things not going well if I made a particular decision. But there has never been an angel voice yelling or even whispering in my ear, "Watch out." I will admit that I have lived a blessed life, and maybe that's why I haven't heard that angel whispering in my ear. Maybe I should qualify that, at least so far. But as I look back in my life, I can maybe think of a time or two when I could have maybe used a bit of that warning. Angels in dreams would have been a unique experience. Not sure how I would have responded. Now, you may have noted that this gospel reading for the first Sunday after Christmas is a change from the past few weeks. It strikes a very different tone. We went the season of Advent in positive anticipation, and Christmas itself reveling in the joy of the birth and the shepherds and the wise men. But now we have tension, dark days and dark forces around the newborn king, even before he speaks his first words, so threatening that his family and he must flee in the night. We note between Herod's threat, life as a refugee in Egypt, and even Herod's devious son, multiple threats to the infant exist. But God has a plan. According to God, his earliest days are carefully orchestrated. Even though he is an infant and then a child who cannot act on his own, God's steady protection and Joseph's faithful obedience combine to ensure his safety in a world of danger. We, with Matthew's help, are aware of both his situations and the ancient prophecies. We can see the power of the prophecies come to life in Matthew's story. Prophecies that guarantee Jesus' inevitable mission. His journey is marked from the beginning by both God's promises on one hand and human opposition on the other hand. Jesus is both the first living presence of God, including prophecies and promises, and second, a constraint or constant irritant to those in human power. So both God of prophecy and an irritant to the world as it existed. In our text today, 3 prophecies anchor the 3 segments of the text, and I want to look at them in turn. First, we hear a story about Joseph receiving a serious warning of coming peril. But this is not like the calm voice that Joseph heard before or the shepherds heard in the night. It's much more intense and demanding. The angel's visit to Joseph tells him to clear out now, to get away as fast as you can. They are alerted to the impending danger. They are directed to flee to all places, Egypt. They are even told that they will know how long to stay. We are told the family heeded the warning and left immediately in the night. They are actually likely joining other exiles in Egypt who had left because of Herod's tyranny. What an about face from shepherds worshiping him and magi bringing valuable gifts. You must admit the Christ child received symbolic and important gifts from some pretty unusual and impressive visitors. But the glory days of gold and frankincense and myrrh did not last long. Now they are family running for their lives, running into exile. For Matthew, this escape is not simply an expedient move. Prophecy foresaw this temporary detour to Egypt. God chose this path in the distant past. Citing the prophet Hosea, Matthew appeals to the prophecy originally focused on the people of Israel, but now points to Jesus alone. Matthew's claim is that Jesus embodies the people of Israel. He is the recipient, the bearer, and the fulfillment of the promises made to Israel by God. Escape to Egypt, prophecy 1 fulfilled. However, getting the family to Egypt did not stop the executions back home. Once Herod realized he had been duped by the Magi, his instinct to preserve his power at all costs kicks in. He knows the approximate date of the birth, and so taking no chances, he orders the extermination of all boys born in and around Bethlehem. We call this the slaughter of the innocents. According to Matthew, the prophet Jeremiah had already prophesied the cries of anguish that would arise in Israel over such grievous oppression. Although consistent with Herod's paranoid acts, this particular genocidal act is never mentioned in other ancient witnesses of Herod's cruelty. Matthew is the sole record of this widespread murder. However, there's no doubt we are called to see the parallels in the execution of Jewish male infants at the hands of Pharaoh in the much earlier exile of Israel. For Matthew, Herod is the new Pharaoh. Feeling his political power might be slipping away, the tyrant lashes out with great malice, but also in vain. Both Pharaoh and Herod triggered disastrous losses of life, yet ultimately both fail to end the life of the powerful leader of Israel. First Moses, then Jesus, are born under the threat of death. Both are guided by God's protective hand. We are left to wonder why the protection did not extend over the other children of the Jews in Egypt or in Bethlehem. Such questions are not raised directly or even indirectly by Matthew. By referencing back to the slaughter of male Hebrew infants in Egypt during the days of the Pharaoh, we see again evil leaders destroying innocents. These events and the pain inflicted in Herod's attempt to destroy the infant Jesus are brought into sharp focus by using the images of the Old Testament prophet Jeremiah, with mothers weeping for lost children. It needs to be made clear that these acts are not fulfillment of God's desire. These are examples of human fear, power, seeking, anger, and evil. The dark prophecies of Jeremiah to be completed in the actions of Herod. Matthew does not dwell on the years spent in exile. Instead, and importantly, prophecy from out of Egypt is fulfilled. As it turns out, Jesus' sojourn in Egypt is brief. After an angel announces the death of Herod, the path is clear to return home to Bethlehem of Judea. Soon the family is directed back to Israel, where they belong. But alas, another problem arises. After learning that Herod's son now rules Judea, the family makes a new home in Nazareth of Galilee. Now, you need to know Galilee, once part of the northern kingdom of Israel, had never really recovered since the fall of the Assyrians, and in Jesus' day was widely populated with what would be termed foreigners. The Jews in Judea itself considered Galilean Jews only a step above those hated Samaritans. Settling there was definitely not a wise move for building credentials as a Messiah, particularly when they chose to settle in a little no-account small town called Nazareth. But for the third time, Matthew points to prophetic promise. He will be called a Nazarene. Unlike the first two prophecies, there's no single prophecy in scriptures that reads quite like the prophecy from Matthew quotes. Even though there's no particular reference, we can be certain that Matthew's source here, this completion of the threefold references to completion of prophecies, guarantees Jesus' early years guarantees his early years and later mission is neither coincidence nor solely a product of human effort. These years are God-driven. So, what has gone on here that is important to us? Matthew has prepared us to have Jesus walk a prophetic path. Matthew trusts the prophetic promises. That is not a simple faith or even an easy path. The narrative of the threefold threats upon Jesus' life bristles with reality. Jesus' life is not exempt from the tyranny so well known to the ancient people. Matthew trusts God's providence. His trust in God's providence emerges not from an overly active innocence, like the innocence of a baby, but from a faith that expects God to reign in the world, a world where the dominance of power might even seem unchangeable. In the midst of the afterglow of Christmas, these passages are stark reminder that things might have been otherwise. A reminder that tragedy and disappointment are too often the order of the day, even amidst the revelry of this holiday season. Expressed in the words of a song we will sing shortly. This causes me to say, I wonder as I wander out under the sky, how Jesus, the Savior, did come forth to die. For poor, ornery people like you and like I wonder as I wander out under the sky. It might have been otherwise, yet God is in charge. What had been spoken by the prophets was fulfilled, even the dark prophecies. Thanks be to God. Let's now share our